Okay, folks, I think we're going. I think we've got some technical smart people here helping us. So, all right, everybody, we're going to get started. I just want to thank you for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to be sitting here. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory, the traditional territory of Cree peoples and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Welcome to our All Candidates Forum for the Humboldt-Watrous constituency. I'd like to offer some thanks to begin. Thanks to the candidates for letting their name stand for public office. It's quite a big commitment, and it's much appreciated, just so that everybody does know that. And also, we'd like to thank the candidates for tonight for their time. It's a Friday night, so I'm really thankful that they're able to make a few minutes for us. Wendy Sikulich, the NDP candidate, sends her regrets for this evening. The candidates for tonight: Rose Bushell of the Progressive Conservatives, Donna Harpower, the incumbent from Sask Party, Connie Maffenbeier, the Buffalo Party candidate, and from the Green Party, we've got Jim Tournier. A quick review of the rules, just so that we're all aware as we go through this. We're going to be courteous in all of our conversations. We're going to be on time, so again, just kind of watch how long you're talking. There's going to be no personal attacks allowed. A breach of the rules will get you a warning. We will be taking questions from our viewers, by the by, and you can either type in a comment or you can send us a message through Facebook, and we will be happy to ask those questions if time allows. We're also going to be rebroadcasting this on YouTube. We're recording this today, and then we're going to rebroad that on YouTube so that it's there in perpetuity for you. So that's kind of fun. The candidates will be given 3 minutes in their opening statements, and then we've got some set questions that I have already sent to them. And then I've asked some of the media to provide some questions, so we've got a few of those. Every candidate will be given 90 seconds to answer the question, and it'll go in alphabetical order, as I stated, and then the next person down the list will go first, and so forth. If the question that we get is to a specific candidate, then that person responds, and then we go through the order again and alphabetically. Then the original person who was asked the question gets 45 seconds for a recap. I will very quietly just let them know when they're getting near to their out of time, and we'll just try to keep this moving very quickly. Again, we've only got an hour. At the end of the evening, each candidate will be given 2 minutes for a recap, and then we'll say goodbye. And that'll be that for the evening. We're going to begin with just some statements from the various candidates. Now, I'm going to leave the mics hot for the candidates, just so you're aware. And so just try to watch the noise and that in the background if you could. So Rose Bushell of the PC Party, you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you, Brent, for hosting this in the Humboldt Chamber of Commerce. It's great to see all the candidates here. It's regretfully that our NDP candidate can't show up tonight. But I'm actually honored to, I'd like to say sit in this room, but sit in my kitchen with all of you here. Some very smart, intelligent people. So I'm very honored. Thank you. So looking forward for the next 4 years, you know, if elected as a candidate, I really want to push for the people of Saskatchewan. We've got a problem with jobs. We need to keep the economy rolling, but at the same time, during COVID times, need to look at the health and well-being of the people in the province. One of the ways we can start looking at jobs is we have to start putting Saskatchewan first. There's so many times I've gone by construction sites and seen license plates from out of province, and where are the people from Saskatchewan? Why aren't they working? And if we really want to boost our economy, we need to have these people working. And in saying that, along with COVID, we really need to start pushing for better mental health. There's people in a crisis, and with COVID, cases have gone up. My last report that I read was approximately 30%. And I think that is just the tip of the iceberg of what's actually going to happen down the road the longer this goes on. It's great that we're looking at building facilities in Regina and Saskatoon, but and I believe one in Estevan, but we need to look beyond that. We've got northern communities that need help, and they're not being engaged in the conversation. They need to have somebody listen to them. They need to have somebody talk to them and ask the questions, what do you need? And let them know that we are there to support them. And that is something that the PC party is willing to do. We're willing to work with people. We're willing to help support them. We want to listen. We want to hear their concerns. I was on the phone today with some people that had questions to ask. I was excited to talk to them. You know, there's some legitimate concerns out there when it comes to people in the future going forward, especially in COVID times right now. And all I can say is when you go to vote, do your research. Look at the parties, look at the platforms. Don't vote one way because this is the way you always voted or that's the way your parents voted. You need to look further than that. You need to look and say, this is what I believe in. And it's something I like to tell my kids all the time as well. Don't vote for me because I'm your mom. You have to vote for a party that rings true to you and their politics.
All right, thank you very much. Donna.
Thank you, Brent, and welcome to the listening audience and all of the fellow candidates. The Saskatchewan Party platform for the 2020 election is focused on a strong economic recovery to build strong families, communities, and subsequently a strong Saskatchewan. We began the election campaign by promising that if re-elected, we'd make life more affordable for families. And we would do that through a home renovation tax credit, through a 10% rebate on the SaskPower bills, by increasing the Saskatchewan Advantage Scholarship, by reducing the small business tax, increasing funding for autism services, and increasing supports for insulin pumps and monitoring devices, increasing supports for our seniors. Our record of investment into Saskatchewan is quite clear. We have invested over $33 billion into infrastructure through the Crown corporations and executive government. We've invested nearly $9 billion to improve over 14,000 kilometers of highways and $17 billion into Crown Corporation infrastructure. $1.7 billion has been invested to build 5 new hospitals, 14 long-term care facilities, and other healthcare infrastructure. And there are 900 more doctors and nearly 4,000 new nurses working in our province than ever before. We've invested $1.8 billion to build 57 new schools and 28 major renovations, and there's an announcement of a brand new school right in this constituency in Lanigan. There are over 1,300 more teachers and 100 more educational assistants working within the schools within our province. Tax reductions through our government have saved Saskatchewan people over $5 billion. We've removed 112,000 people from the provincial tax roll entirely. We have reduced the education property tax, saving residents approximately $100 million per year. The global COVID-19 pandemic presented a challenge to our province like nobody has ever seen before. And the people of Saskatchewan have worked together, made incredible sacrifices, and showed the true Saskatchewan spirit in our fight against the pandemic. The Saskatchewan Party has planned to reopen, recover, and rebuild. Our plan for a strong Saskatchewan will make life more affordable. It'll balance the budget by 2024, and we have a plan for growing Saskatchewan going forward. This means a strong economy, strong communities, and strong families for a strong Saskatchewan. I believe there's a clear choice for voters. Who do you trust to lead Saskatchewan's economic recovery? Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. We'll move on now to the Buffalo Party candidate, Connie Muffenbauer.
Good evening. I was excited and honored to join the Buffalo Party as a candidate because their vision fell in line with my thoughts on the future of our great province, Saskatchewan. I believe we can do a much better job with our abundant resources by keeping the jobs and money in Saskatchewan for Saskatchewan people. In addition to keeping those hardworking folks who built this province healthy and well cared for, and those veterans who fought for our freedom not forgotten and well taken care of as well. We need to build on a future that is not crippling us in debt with higher taxes and program cuts because our provincial debt is out of control. I believe in spending money that the province has, starting in keeping a rainy day fund and not using Saskatchewan taxpayers as a never-ending source of income. I, for one, am feeling the impact of taxation, be it federal or provincial, and feeling frustrated at the never-ending attempts of governments to take my hard-earned cash to cover deficits they themselves are responsible for. Saskatchewan will be the first province in the West to approach an election year with a mandate of rebalancing the power so that our province is recognized and appreciated for its contributions. Ottawa fails to recognize the huge importance Saskatchewan plays as a contributor to the economy. The Buffalo Party is willing to be an advocate or forerunner for the independence from Ottawa. We believe that. With the strong progressive candidates this election opportunity, we can offer Saskatchewanians an option for change away from the archaic system that no longer works for us to envision what we can being a very prosperous, in-charge province. We are a province of hardworking people, both generous to a fault, but stoic. We get things done by doing. And we keep plowing ahead. Let's build a new, healthy, strong, and debt-free Saskatchewan, and let's do it together. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And we'll move on to Jim Tournier from the Green Party. Jim.
Thank you to everyone. It's good to be here. As a candidate for the Green Party, I'm looking mostly at a local economy. It seems to me the most important economy is one right around here. We have to provide services for the people with whom we live. If we provide them more close to home, then of course there are less expenses involved in that. And the money stays in the community, and therefore it gets recirculated. And if we would also have some kind of floor income for all people, again, it would bring more money into the local economy, which should circulate locally for also a more healthy situation. Also, because I mentioned watching the debate last night, and of course, because we are Canadians, we will be polite with each other. And so I'm appreciating all the people who are devoting all this time to this election. And I hope we can appreciate each other, even when our policies certainly do not always agree. So I'd like to say that we moved to Humboldt in 2005, and a few years after that, I went to the office of the MLA, and you were then a member of the opposition, Donna, and I had a problem with a bureaucrat in Regina, and I explained the problem to you and your office person, and you said to your staff person, write him the letter he's asking for, and this person wrote a letter, and I never heard from that office again. So thank you, Donna. I think I can stop here.
Okay, good. Thanks, Jim. We're going to go on to a few questions now. And what I did was I circulated 4 questions to all of candidates, just so they had, some good, just so they are aware of 4 questions. We've also got another 7 or 8, I think, that are lined up here to ask later on, and they're either specific to a candidate, and these are from some of the journalists from our area, or from people who've asked us to ask questions. So they're quite interesting, and they cover the whole gamut. Just so you're all aware. So Donna gets the first question, and again, because these are general questions, so it's not specifically to Donna, it's just in the rotation. And then everybody gets 90 seconds to respond to them. So first off is Donna. What do you see as the key to economic recovery growth for businesses in our area?
I think we're going to need for recovery support for all of our businesses and industries. First and foremost, I think it was important that we reopened as quickly as possible. That met with some criticism from our official opposition at the time, but I believe that we had a very safe, well thought out recovery or reopening plan. And it shows in our job numbers. We are the strongest in job numbers right now in the nation for job creation. And I understand that that is jobs coming back, but we are the strongest in the entire country, as well as the strongest in retail sales recovery. While their shutdown was there, I think it was important that we give supports to our small business. They are the backbones of our communities. And as such, we were one of the few provinces that had support for our small business while there was a shutdown. And we've since introduced a support program for the tourism industry so they can meet their bills, because it's going to recover slower. We have introduced, or we're going to introduce the platform, a 10% reduction to power bills. That will help all of our businesses within our communities, as well as a zero. We're going to bring the small business tax down to zero. This will put more money into their business, that they can build their business, they can continue to hire their employees and recover. As well as a stimulus, we provided money to all the municipalities based on population to
John,
use
I'll have to,
for infrastructure.
okay, I'll have to stop you there. Thank you. We'll move on now to Connie.
We know that a strong economic recovery is only possible by using our vast resources which are abundant and accessible. We need to stop shuttering and shutting down the industries that provide a viable option to our recovery, which addresses all sectors of the economy, starting with truckers to farmers. Reduce restrictions and taxes on small businesses so they can open and keep making money. We want to see more value-added market options in big business and the agriculture industry. Stop shipping our raw goods out for manufacture and buying those goods back at inflated prices. We need to draw more interest in Saskatchewan, in businesses wanting to start up shop in Saskatchewan by reducing the first 5 years of taxes. Once those businesses are established and prosperous, those businesses will add numerous jobs to the people of Saskatchewan and increase our gross domestic product. We want to make Saskatchewan an attractive place to invest. We want to encourage those businesses to come to Saskatchewan by reducing the number of bureaucrats and red tape that is stifling and constricting our province's ability to have real growth in this economy. Using taxation as a means to recovery is not an option. You can't tax the province into prosperity. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Jim.
Well, I certainly want to encourage business in this area, but what I'm asking for is healthy business, a business that provides a living for the owners, a business that provides a living for the people who work there also, one that provides service, goods and services for customers. I prefer businesses that are local, and they have to be an appropriate size, whatever that is, and that is to be determined. So not necessarily always increasing in size. This area is so agricultural. We produce all these agricultural products which get shipped away. I wonder how much of the food that's eaten in Humboldt is actually produced in Humboldt. So we must make every effort to encourage more people to produce food that can be used locally or in this province.
Okay. Good. Jim, thank you. Let's move up to Rose.
So key to economic recovery in this province is, the main thing is jobs, and it's keeping the jobs in the province. When a government announces, I believe it was $7.5 billion for infrastructure, knowing full well that a lot of that money is going outside of the province from contractors outside of the province, this isn't keeping jobs and money in Saskatchewan. This is helping boost the economy of other provinces. We need to keep our people we need to keep our people working. We need to promote industry. We need to make it more attractive for business and industry to set up shop in Saskatchewan. We lost the film tax credit years ago. It was a measure that supposedly saved $500 million. In saving that money that the government said it did at the time, what happened is it cost our economy over $1 billion because all of this went to Manitoba, because there's nothing here that's enticing to bring anything like that into the province. And these are things that we need to start doing to have this healthy recovery. We need to start keeping jobs within the province and start building new ones.
Okay, good, thank you. Next question. One of the biggest hurdles that businesses faced, and you know, as I've gone around and chatted with people and businesses in our area, they said the supply chain was their Achilles heel. They had trouble just getting stuff to sell. You know, if you formed a government, how would you address that? And we'll start with Connie.
COVID has played a huge disservice to the economy, shutting down and shuttering businesses and reducing the ability of supply chains to manufacture and distribute their goods. COVID-19 is a virus like the common cold virus. It won't be going away just like the common cold virus. We will have to learn to live with that COVID virus just like the common cold virus. We need to open up our economy and give our businesses a chance of recovery and survival. As a personal freedom, you can choose to wear a mask when outdoors, keep a safe distance from other people, or stay at home. But Saskatchewan cannot afford to be shuttered anymore. People's lives depend on the strength of our economy and the investment that the business people have invested in Saskatchewan. We need to keep those businesses alive by being able to have our economy operating full steam ahead. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. And then we'll move on to Jim.
There's a really unusual wording in this question number 2. It talks about a global shortage of goods. How odd. I always understood that we were drowning in stuff, that we produce far too much stuff, which takes far too much energy to produce and far too much energy to dispose of. I don't think the problem is a shortage of goods. I still think it's a problem of a poor distribution of goods. Many of us have too much, and a lot of people have too little. So if we can make the incomes more closely together, we have a better chance of having a better distribution of such goods. And the supply chain is one great weakness when there are global problems. A long supply chain is one that's very difficult to maintain when there's a lot of unrest in the world. So if we could have goods produced locally more, we'd be in a far better situation.
Okay, Jim, thank you. And up to Rose.
Yeah, I read this question and I took a long time thinking about this. Why do we have a shortage of goods? Why don't we have can manufacturing places in Saskatchewan? Why don't we have plastic manufacturers in Saskatchewan? Why don't we have more pulp and paper? So my question is, I don't understand why we have a shortage of goods when we have the resources that we can start doing all of this here. So I think the biggest thing, if we want to look at getting over the shortage of goods, I think what we need to do is start making it more enticing that we have the goods readily made and in this province already.
Okay, Rose. Good, thank you. And on to Donna.
Thank you, Brent. And Rose touched on something. I think it is something that we discuss a lot in our government, and that is being tax competitive and regulation competitive to attract investment. However, we don't have all the investment here we'd like to have, and we don't have all the manufacturing here. Even if you are tax competitive, there are other reasons and factors. Do we have influence on the reopening of other jurisdictions, other countries, and other provinces? We don't. We have no influence on that. We have reopened Saskatchewan as quickly as possible. There are a few restrictions on businesses. The largest restrictions right now is gathering sizes, but there is no business that we are requiring to be closed. I do know that some of them are having issues with getting supplies, but I have no influence, or our government has no influence on the reopening plan of another province or another country.
Okay, thanks very much. The next question, it'll be led off with Jim Tournier of the Green Party, and it's just so everybody knows, folks, that this is coincidental the way this question lined up. But there's been a lot of talk about a green recovery, and that's been a federal mandate. But how does that detail with an already beleaguered oil and gas sector? And how would your party make those two polar opposites work?
Well, obviously we need a just transition, because fossil fuels, we've got to burn far, far less of them, and we've got to promote more energy that is renewable. And we have to use less energy also. And we can provide lots of good jobs if we start taking steps to use energy more wisely. When we moved to Humboldt, there were grants available, I'm not sure at what level, for retrofitting houses so that we used less energy. We were able to take part to participate in this grant, and we got the house re-insulated. We got some new doors and windows, efficient furnace, low flush toilet, the usual things, and it made a big difference in the amount of energy we used. And then whichever level of government was offering it, the grant was cut. So we have to renew this kind of program so that we can both cause buildings to be retrofitted so they use far less energy, and we have to also promote the installing of renewable energy, which I think the solar one is probably the most prominent today, but also we have lots of wind, and there are some wind farms coming up in Saskatchewan. Again, these things are local and fairly small scale and will use a lot of people. So they're good employments rather than having mega projects which use a lot of technology and a lot of capital, but maybe less people.
Okay, thank you. I'll have to stop you right there. And then we move up to Rose.
Green energy. Well, I think when it comes to green energy, we need to look at this two ways. We need to look at it responsibly as well as realistically. Responsibly in, should we look at future innovations for green energy? Definitely, I'm not saying no. Realistically, we live in Saskatchewan. We have hit temperatures that the one year, I remember 3 days in a row, we were colder than the surface temperature of Mars. Well, it's good to know that we can live on Mars. But saying that, we need to say we can't cut our reliance on fossil fuels. I don't know, I grew up with baseboard heaters and they're not the most efficient, and right now there isn't the efficiency in solar energy as well as wind energy isn't that good. And on top of it, I have yet to see a good plan on how green energy is going to work. There is no plan. It's great to talk green energy, but show me a feasible plan that's going to work. How does this work? If somebody produces their own energy or has a wind turbine, are they selling it back to the power grid, or can they go off the grid themselves? Are we going to start getting taxed on sunshine and wind because that's what we're using now for power? So this is all stuff we have to look at, and these are plans that have never been laid out.
Okay, Rose. Good, thank you. And Donna.
Thank you, Brent. You pointed out that the green recovery is a federal government term, and what they are implying with it is virtual signaling, where the two are polar opposite, and they shouldn't be. I think we can do both. We can recover and we can improve in environmental stewardship, and we're going to do it through technology and innovation, not restrictive regulations, not with stopping pipelines so that we can't get product to Tidewater, not through a carbon tax, which is ineffective. We can do it through technology and innovation, and the industries within our province are absolutely doing just that. In agriculture, in mining, in oil, in gas, our companies have been extremely innovative in how they've changed their processes to be far environmentally responsible beyond other countries. And we need to recognize that. They need security. We need to have stability and predictability in order to invest in our province. We do that through our royalty structure. We do that through stable taxation, and we have a number of incentive programs to encourage development. We believe that our companies are superior to others in the world.
Okay, Donna, thank you very much. The next question is more of a question about what people are talking about when you're out chatting with them. And as you all know, you're out there on the trail and you know, hearing people's concerns and their desires and wishes. And so when you're out there, is there a common thread among all of those questions? Is there one that keeps surfacing? Rose, we'll begin with you.
Excuse me, Brent, but could I answer the question number 3, please, about the
Did I not put- My apologies, Connie. And then, so I hope everybody will remember the question I just asked, because I'll never be able to ask that again. But Connie, my apologies. Yes, please go ahead.
We're talking about a green recovery and how does this work with the oil and gas sector? People in Canada have a choice. Those that would adopt a green stance will have the choice of using the sun and the wind power to heat and cool their homes and their businesses. They can opt to buy electric cars and use bicycles for their transportation. Canada has one of the most effective carbon capture technologies in all of the world. We use this carbon capture and storage technology, which was promoted by Mr. Scott Moe when he was the environmental minister. Canada has educated and demonstrated the effectiveness of this technology to visitors from different parts of the world. When speaking of oil, Canada's oil industry is one of the most ethically produced products in all of the world. Let's look at China and India as a starting point for the green movement. Let the Greens introduce the carbon capture and storage technology to those polluting countries to reduce their emissions. Canada's emissions are amongst the lowest in the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, my apologies, Connie. I do apologize for that. So let's go back to Rose and question number 4, which is, when you're out chatting with people, what are you hearing?
The biggest thing is jobs. People are worried. They've been sitting collecting EI, which has transitioned into CERB. Now it's transitioning into the CRB. The place that they're working is still shut down. They want to know what their future is. They want to know what jobs are going to look like. And it is so unpredictable right now what to say to people, except we need to start promoting Saskatchewan first. We need to get these people back to work, keep small businesses going, keep your small contractors going. Don't just tender out to the lowest bidder, because you're not helping your own economy, you're not helping your own people. We need to start keeping people of Saskatchewan first.
Okay, thank you. Donna.
Right now, unfortunately, the frustration is largely around the big topic of COVID-19, the pandemic. It's very emotional and it's very, very divisive, because there is extreme, conversations on one extreme end that is still very frightened, wants mandatory masking everywhere, wants things to remain shut down, to the other side that wants none of this and just wants to move on. So it is an emotional conversation that I'm having with many constituents, and there is no one right answer. The other is, there is definitely, and you're going to hear that from Connie as well, there is a frustration with the federal government, with their policies, with their spending, with their disregard to Western Canada. I think we're all hearing that within our constituencies. Those are very real concerns, and each and every community as well will have a specific concern, be it a lagoon or be it another project. I know in Lanigan, right now they're concerned about lack of staff in their hospital, rightfully so, but there's no other issues other than frustration with the federal government and the pandemic that's everywhere within our constituent.
Okay, Donna, thank you. Connie?
I've talked to, I'm the same constituency here, and I've talked to a lot of people with respect to their concerns, and a couple of issues came up tonight. One of them was taxation. People are concerned about the level of taxation they're paying for goods and services. Rural folks are paying their share of taxes and getting little acknowledgement from the government with respect to health care and services available to them in rural areas. And I'll give you an example. For example, the Lanigan Hospital emergency room has been closed for months now. And I think that was probably, it's got to be over 6 months. Seniors now, and they make up a large majority of the Lanigan district, are transported by ambulance out of the district here to neighboring hospitals for treatment. When they get there, and if they're kept in the hospital any length of time, they don't have a ride back to their homes. So they have to call the ambulance once they're released to get their ride back home. This is very costly for seniors because they're on a fixed income, and it's a huge burden for them. They're asking me, why is our emergency hospital right now in Lanigan closed? I said, I don't know. I guess it's because of this COVID-19 thing that's sitting out there. Second thing is the nursing staff of the nursing homes and the hospitals have not had a contract going on for 4 years. They feel they are underappreciated for the long and hard work that they do in these nursing homes and the hospitals. This issue needs to be addressed, and their contracts need to be negotiated with attractive concessions and considerations so more people go into the area of long-term care.
All right, Connie, thank you. That was it for you. We'll move on to Jim.
Could I remark that, Connie, your sound comes in and out quite a bit and you're difficult to follow. I don't know if you can do anything to improve that, but anyway.
I'll just get closer.
Yeah, no surprise that most people are talking about the pandemic and the isolation and the lockdowns. That's bothering a lot of people. And I think that many people are somewhat more tense and making relationships more difficult. And yet at the same time, because we can't go and do the things we usually do, we are finding new things to do. And that's reasonably positive. If you check with the lumber yards and the hardware stores, if you check with the garden centers and the seed businesses, they are running out of goods. There are more and more people doing constructions and renovations. There are more and more people growing gardens. And I'm hoping this is not going to change once the pandemic ends. So there are some positive aspects of what is going on right now. Every crisis presents opportunities, and this one has its own opportunities.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I think we've got time for one more question before we head into wrap up. And again, just so that everybody understands, this was just a really good opportunity for folks to see, who's going to be on the ballot coming up on Monday. And so, it also, we're dealing with very tight timelines because on the intranets, the people don't really tend to sit and watch too long. So I wanted to keep it tight, and I think we've done that. And I want to thank everybody for that. So the final question that I've got is dealing with basically business and moving it forward. This is an area that's has tourism. It's got manufacturing, farming, mining. It's a very diverse spot. How, if elected, would your party ensure that drivers are put in place that will propel it forward, particularly when it comes to marketing, supporting trade relations, and the ultimate in growth is attracting new business. And we'll be starting off on this one with Donna.
Yes, thank you for that question. So, as I had mentioned earlier, we've been supportive financially with our businesses through the shutdown. We also had in the past raised the small business income threshold from 500,000 to 600,000, and we're going to be reducing, should we form government, their power by 10% and eliminating the small business tax for a time period. But the trade is so important, and that is why Scott Moe has made a number of trade missions, many of them to the United States. They're still our #1 trading partner, to build those relationships, because those one-on-one relationships are critical. We're also going to be setting up trade offices in other countries where we believe we have potential for growing our markets. This will be like Bangladesh. India is a huge market for us. There's huge potential. So we're going to have 3 additional new trade offices that will be on the ground selling Saskatchewan and what Saskatchewan has to offer.
Oh, good. Thanks very much, Donna. And then Constance.
Okay, for boosting the economy, we'd like to have removal of the National Transfer Payment Program. This program is unfair to Saskatchewan. Each province needs to learn to work within their means. We'd like to reiterate again that preference would be given to Saskatchewan companies first, when other Western provincial companies for all provincial projects. Saskatchewan will not work with questionable companies. This will be done by exiting the New West Partnership. We will implement a Saskatchewan first policy. We'll bring forth legislation for Saskatchewan to manage all tax structure, including national tax rules, and Saskatchewan a monthly statement. We'll renew the expensive list by the credible expenses in Saskatchewan. We'll send our share in payment. So in other words, what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep as much money in Saskatchewan for Saskatchewan people so that we can build a province with industry and people for Saskatchewan. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks very much, Constance. And if I could, just when you're doing your wrap up, if you could talk to your right, because it comes in a lot clearer when you talk to the right.
Okay, all right.
I just realized that, so now we can get that address for your.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Jim. Jim?
We moved to Humboldt because it seemed like a nice sized little community. It had the kind of things we wanted, and it wasn't terribly far from Saskatoon, the big city. We've always lived in rural Saskatchewan. The family farm is north of North Battleford. Rural Saskatchewan has been ignored for quite a long time now. The present government ignores it because everybody votes for them. They don't have to campaign there. The opposition ignores them because they're not going to get any seats. It's an unfortunate situation to be in. So it seems to me we have to do more to make rural Saskatchewan a good place to live again. A good place to start is transportation. I'm a senior. Luckily, I have a car. In fact, we have 2 cars, and I still drive. But I anticipated that I could stop driving and take the bus to go and visit our children. It doesn't work because we have no bus. That was a great blow against rural Saskatchewan. There was also a threat to close the libraries, or at least reduce them. At least it was backed off on that. But we need services in rural Saskatchewan, and we're not as well served as we could be. And yet Humboldt's a good area. It supports its local people very well. We have a lot of manufacturing industries in the agricultural sector. And they have been local inventors who produced good products that people have been willing to buy. It was also a good source of income for local people, but now you have to import people to do the work.
Thanks, Jim. Yep, good, thank you. And then Rose.
So, trade and small businesses. Well, Donna touched on an important thing about minimizing or actually cutting small business tax to 0. My only problem is that this is for a limited amount of time. Instead of bringing it down to 0 for a limited amount of time, we need to just lower that tax. And instead of just raising the threshold by 100,000 for a limited amount of time, we need to look at that being more steady and constant. 100,000 nowadays isn't the same as what it was 20 years ago. $100 nowadays isn't the same as what it was 20 years ago. So as the price of living goes up, we need to start looking at that dollar figure and make sure that goes up to be competitive to what we had before. And Donna's right. We definitely need to let other countries know what Saskatchewan has to offer. Well, let's give them more to offer. Let's start up more industry. Let's make it incentive for people to develop more here. We had talked about carbon capture. Let's see a program with carbon capture that we can start producing food year round through greenhouses that we're capturing this carbon from. Why are we importing everything when we can start exporting?
Okay, thank you. And that's, I think, it for the questions. And now we'll go into a recap for everybody. I think, folks, just before you go into that, I just want to pass along my thanks to you. I really think that, the people that are watching got a very good look at all of the views. I mean, it does cover a lot of political geography when we've got a group that's as diverse as you. So I really do want to thank you all for that. So doing the wrap up again, we're just going by alphabetical order, and Constance, we'd like you to lead it off, please.
Well, it's been a privilege and an eye-opener for me to initially run for the Buffalo Party of Saskatchewan. I didn't realize just how much work that would involve, and doing so, I've met a lot of interesting and wonderful people in the province of Saskatchewan, and I applaud them for their stoic and their ability to survive in a time when things are just so bad with the COVID-19. And there's Saskatchewan people are tough, they're resilient, and we will make it through this disease or this virus as quickly as we can. And my thoughts are with the people of Saskatchewan. We can do it, and let's work together to get it done.
Okay, Connie, thank you. And then on to Jim.
Climate change is real, and climate change is a very great danger to our whole world. We must use energy less. We must use energy smarter. We must produce less. We must consider other things to give joy in life rather than things. If we are not able to reduce our footprint on this world, we're going to be here for a rather limited amount of time. So I invite us all to use our wealth smarter, and technology is not going to solve all our problems. We are going to have to cut back. We have things that are excuses, like carbon capture, which works not especially well. Nuclear energy, which causes all kinds of problems which we have no answer for. So be smarter in the way we use our goods, and consider rather our human relationships to be the most important thing in our lives. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, thank you. And up to Rose.
Well, thank you again for hosting this. I guess I'd just like to leave off that when people go to vote, remember there's more than just two parties. When you look at the leadership debate, all you saw was the leaders from Saskatchewan Party and NDP. Nobody else was given an opportunity to speak. And to me, that's problematic. So the fact that you invited all the candidates, I applaud you. I think it is absolutely amazing. As a PC government, we are a government that's going to listen. We are a government that cares. We want to hear what you have to say. We don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on vanity projects. We want to build a better Saskatchewan and have better industry and keep people in Saskatchewan working instead of contracting government contracts out to different provinces. We're here to build our economy, the Saskatchewan economy, not the economy of Manitoba and Alberta, but Saskatchewan has to come first.
Okay, Rose, thank you. And Donna.
Thank you, Brett, and thank you for hosting us tonight. I think there can be no question that the Saskatchewan Party has been investing in our province in a major way. And I know there's always more work that we need to do, but I'm proud of our record, and I stand by my party and the Premier against the record of the NDP with decline and closures. The resilience of our province came through in the wake of the global pandemic. I'd like to thank all the people of Saskatchewan for their work and their sacrifice and the diligence in working together. Our plan for a strong Saskatchewan will make life more affordable. It'll balance our budget by 2024, and we have a plan for growing Saskatchewan. This will mean a strong economy and strong communities and strong families within our province. So I believe there is a clear choice for voters. Who do you trust to lead Saskatchewan's economic recovery? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we're actually a couple of minutes early. So I just thought of a quick snapper question just to toss out there. and we'll be leading off with Jim on this. And Jim, and just a very brief answer, under a minute if you can. And well, actually, I'll make sure you're under a minute for sure. But when we began this COVID journey back in February, March, there was a perception of what it was going to be like. How do you feel Saskatchewan has done as a province in that time? Jim.
Well, we've been blessed by having a small population. And the cities are in worse shape than we are because people didn't gather so much. I don't think we've done terribly badly because we're scattered. But more than that, I don't have any special comments to make on what took place. And we're finding ways to use our time because we can't go off to work.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Rose?
How has the province handled it?
And I mean the people, like the folks you
The
run into.
people, the people in general. I'm very proud of the people in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan people have got to be some of the most resilient people I have ever come across. I've gotten together with my sister-in-laws and my mother-in-law and had coffee Zoom meetings. Yes, coffee. And it was great. We can't get together the way we want to in a large group, but we found a way to get around it. And I think it's great that people in Saskatchewan are banding together the way they are to keep each other supported as much as possible by reaching out by FaceTiming or video chat of some way, whether it be through Facebook or Zoom. And I think it's great that people in Saskatchewan are supporting each other the way they are.
All right, thank you. Donna?
Well, I know from being part of those really tough decisions in the beginning with the unknown to now we have the data and we know. Through the large effort of the people of Saskatchewan, we've kept our numbers statistically very, very low, which is very positive. And it goes to, I'm going to go to Jim and Rose's comments they made, which is so true. Jim said this has been good in people becoming more creative and doing more at home, doing more for themselves. But I also have the concerns of Rose. It has also led to, I believe, there will be more mental health issues that we're going to have to address going forward. Both of those statements is very true and very concerning on the part of Rose's concern.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Connie.
People of Saskatchewan accepted the responsibility of containing the virus. They did what they were asked to do. They kept their distance and they kept, and people who came in from other provinces self-quarantined for 14 days to ensure that they did not spread a disease or a virus that they carried themselves from another province. But people are getting to the point now in Saskatchewan that they're getting ready for a change. They're starting to want a relaxation of the rules, and they want their economy to go back to sustainability. We're having a problem, like Donna says, with a lot of issues with the mental health and suicides and depression because people cannot get back to what they're accustomed to. And so that's having a huge mental health factor on those folks. So myself, I think it's time that we start getting back to a little bit more of a normal and in this virus situation so that people can start having some hope. And that's the biggest thing that we've got right now is lack of hope and direction in the future.
Okay, good, thank you. That's all the time we've got, folks. I want to thank you very much for the time this evening. We kept it to an hour, which is always good. I'm an old broadcaster and I got a thing about time. So very happy with everybody. Thank you very much for coming out this evening, and good luck in the election coming up on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks to everyone.